Welcome to Actions and Limits. My name is Justin Atherton. I'm the Peak Performance Consultant for Confidence Unchained. With me as always is Paul Fortune. Paul is a mindset coach and the founder of A Call to Action. And together, we make Actions and Limits. Welcome to the show, the podcast where we talk about the actions we can take and the limits we create. Make sure to subscribe to the show either on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform, and check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Actions and Limits to make sure that you're staying updated on all the upcoming content. Paul, we've got another great guest coming out today. Johan is going to be on the show, and I know you and I were checking out his content. He talks a lot about restricting your social media use. I know you were watching one of his videos. What did you see on there?
Well, there's some questions I need to ask him about myself, really, because being a coach and being in the coaching business and dealing with COVID-19, everything is pretty much done through the computer. And as I told you off air, Justin, I am on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram all the time, and I'm looping it, just trying to market myself, trying to talk to different people. So, I can justify a little bit. So we'll talk to him to see if I'm doing all the right things.
Yeah, I'm interested to pick his brain and see if it's more along the lines of like restrict it completely, or is there tips and tricks to use it better? Because like you said, for people that are using their phones for business, you can't stop that, so maybe he's got some tips and tools to bring up that can help, guide us in the right direction on how much or like how to use stuff better. So I'm excited to pick his brain on that. So, well, let's get into it, because I know we're going to have a lot of questions to ask him. So let's go ahead and bring out Johan to the show. So his bio. Johan says a few years ago, he struggled enormously, really suffered from phone and social media addiction. And he knew he had to find a way to unhook himself from screens. But he didn't want to completely abstain from tech and screens, because they are all part of our lives and they're here to stay. Nevertheless, he learned how to use screens mindfully. And the more he became aware of detrimental effects screens have on us. These days, he helps individuals and families to recover from phone and social media addiction. The focus is not just on helping people with stopping liking and posting their lives away, but on helping them to become a better version of themselves as well. Essentially, Johan's mission is to help people live their lives with purpose and free from tech addiction. All right, everybody, welcome Johan Versteegh to the show. Johan, glad to have you on the show, man.
Thank you guys for having me. It's my pleasure. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I know Paul and I were checking out a lot of your content, some of your videos and everything. Really like the idea of like the limiting the social media type stuff, but give us some background on you. Like, how did you get into this? Like, where did all this start, Johan?
Well, around 10 years ago, I actually used the very first Android device, and Facebook was pretty popular back then. And I was kind of one of the first ones to use such a device, so I could show off. Everyone was asking me, what is that? Like, I had to introduce the whole concept of smartphones to people. But I basically was using it all the time. And then I met a girl who was really crazy about Facebook. And she basically said, Johan, we have to show the world that we love each other, that we're crazy about each other. And I was on Facebook, like 5-6 posts a day. And initially she was like kind of, saying, Johan, where's my post? Where's my Celine Dion post? Where's my song? Like a quote, a nice heart. And I was like posting. I was like, yes, baby, of course. Here it is. I will post it in a few hours. And constantly, I feel forced to just constantly post and show the world how much we're in love. But I always use this mantra that is, I don't want to die stupid. And the more I was using social media, the more I was like disconnecting from that mantra. because I was not like really producing. I was producing, but posts, images, that was not valuable at all.
Sure.
And I was just like losing myself. And I was really thinking about what should I do? Like, what do I want to do? Like, I was very curious. I wanted to experiment, but I couldn't because I was using Facebook all the time. And in the beginning, it was all fun. It was nice. But once I tried to disconnect, people started to say like, hey, Johan, how didn't you know about this and this? Because I posted it on Facebook. And I was like, yeah, sorry, I should know. Let me log back in and I'll see what's up. But then later on, I was like, no, look, if I need to know something, just send me a message, call me. Like, I don't want to use Facebook. But eventually we break up, me and my girlfriend, because what happened is one day we were walking on the beach and then she was drawing this heart on the sand and then like writing Johan love Fernanda. And then she asked me, could you please kneel in front of the heart? So I kneeled in front of the heart and then she took a photo. And then 2 hours later, she's posting that photo saying, look what Johan made me. This beautiful heart that he designed for me to show how much he. So I noticed that we started to lie about things. Like she really was focusing on people to understand how much we're crazy about each other. And that was the moment that I thought to myself, wow, like we invest so much in this Facebook. Suddenly Mark Zuckerberg is having a time of his life. He's making all the money. His company is making all the money. And here we are losing ourselves fighting over the fact that we are not posting 5 times, but maybe just once or twice a day.
Wow.
I broke up with her. And that's a funny thing. Then after a few months, people were like, so how are you two doing? I said, well, we broke up. I said, well, really? Like, I didn't know. Like, we need closure as well. You're posting about your relationship from the beginning, and then suddenly you break up, and then no one knows about it online. Like, you have to ask you personally. I say, yeah. And that was just a reality check that just post the highlight reels.
They needed the ending of the story, Johan.
They needed the ending.
Exactly. Johan, how old were you when you were doing this with this relationship with this girl?
Around 25 years.
Okay, 25 years old. Okay, yeah, so it makes sense. Yeah, at that age. Let me ask you this question: when you were in the throes of this, when you were in the throes of posting all the time with this girl, do you, looking back now, were you in love with her, or were you just in love with the fact that you were in love on Facebook?
I was in love with her, actually. Yes. But just because of that behavior, I was like, nah, that's not really my frequency. She's not really on my wavelength. Like I wanted to like expand, but she was just like kind of happy. And then once I started to build a website, which was about the World Cup in Brazil, then she actually said, okay, enough. What about me? What about me? And just because I had that thing that was pulling me away from social media, it became more annoying. So yeah, there became a moment that I really asked myself, do I really love her? And then the answer is no, actually not really, not anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah, I think the concept of her I like, but yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That's such interesting, just the psychological aspects of that, like especially the fact that you said she just started straight up lying about what was going on. Because you think about, okay, people posting on, social media, they embellish a little bit. It's like, oh, it wasn't as great as maybe it was, or they only show, it's only a highlight reel, right? Anyone's Facebook, Instagram, whatever, it's a highlight reel. But to just straight up fabricate something that your spouse created for you, right? That's a whole new level. So I can see where you're like, hang on, like this relationship isn't where I thought it was, because she's just trying to make it better on social media than maybe it is in person. Yes. But it's that's a whole different psychological level there.
Exactly, because I told her, let's meet on Skype at least. Like she was in Brazil and I was in Dublin, but she was Brazilian. I was like, at least let's use Skype. But no, that was not enough. Like how would people know that we love each other? Like they had to know, of course.
So what have you created from that, Johan? Like I know Paul and I have watched some of your videos, but go ahead and explain it to our audience, like what stemmed from those events, and I'm sure there's some other events that created that as well. But what are you doing now with that, Johan?
Yeah, so the whole issue of social media addiction, screen addiction was like solved a long time ago. So once I started to produce and get to know myself better, then no problem to disconnect from social media. And I still use social media now, but mindfully with intention. So around 2 years ago, 2018, then I heard people talk more about screen addiction, phone addiction, because back then, 10 years ago, I never heard the terms phone addiction or social media addiction. But 2 years ago, I heard it more and more. So I thought, you know what, let me help people with this addiction. Because sometimes people ask me like, Johan, you're never really on Facebook, are you? Like, you're not even on Instagram. Like, how do you do that? Why aren't you using those platforms? So then I told myself, you know, you always want to do something in the self-development business. You always tell yourself you don't want to die stupid. You want to produce. You want to live a meaningful life, a better life. You want to serve. You want to help people. So do something with phone addiction and screen addiction. And now, that was before the pandemic. So now with the pandemic, everyone is talking about it.
Sure.
But 2 years ago, a lot of people were asking me, like, is this a thing? Like, I never heard someone who's helping people with social media addiction or excessive phone use or excessive screen time. But now you see a lot of people enter the space.
You said something that was pretty interesting. You said, I don't want to die stupid. What does that mean?
Yeah, I really like that. I was literally about to ask the same thing. I love that. But yeah, go ahead, expand on that, Johan.
Yeah, I don't want to die stupid. Like, I want to be in the uncomfortable zone as much as I can, because I know that's where bliss is found. So I want to become curious. I always want to be curious, be interested, and want to be learning. You know, like, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know anything. It's like the more you travel, the more you realize how you know nothing about the world, you know? So it's, I don't want to die stupid. It's like always trying to challenge yourself, basically. Always make it uncomfortable for yourself to find that bliss, to find the level of fulfillment. Because I think ultimate growth and greatness is found on the other side of fear. So you have to be uncomfortable.
I love that comment. Don't die stupid. And you brought up a good way to relate it. You know, being in that uncomfortable zone. That's something that Paul and I talk about on a regular basis. Like, find new ways to make yourself uncomfortable, because that's where growth occurs.
Yeah. Yes.
So, and I think you said it best, you know, traveling around the world or learning new things. The more you learn, again, like you said, Johan, the more you realize you don't know anything.
Exactly. Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, true.
So what have you seen from your clients, or the people that you help? What kind of feedback do you get from telling people they need to get off social media, since this is like the new addiction, right? So what feedback do you get from that, Johan?
Well, first, people are not necessarily honest about it. They think it's very normal. It's like smoking in the 50s. Like, everyone was smoking, it was normal. But I can imagine maybe some people, they thought, you know, smoking so much cannot be good. But everyone was smoking anyway. So you're like, you know, everyone's doing it, so I'm going to continue smoking. So now you see with screen addiction that a lot of people start to become more honest about the fact that, yes, I should reduce my social media time or my screen time. But yeah, then everyone is using their screens. And then you can also justify your own behavior, because you need to check that email, you need to stay in contact with people, you need to check the weather, you can shop, you can listen to music. So you can easily justify to yourself, okay, I have to keep using my phone. Like with smoking or drugs, it's like absolutely no go, abstinence. But with social media, with phones, with the internet, it's not. So a lot of people tell themselves the story of, nah, it's okay, it's normal. But you see more people start to wake up. For example, with this new documentary on Netflix that was released, Social Dilemma, that people start to become more aware of the fact that, yeah, excessive social media is not, or being on our phones is just not good. So more people, they appreciate the fact that that realization is there, and they're more courageous to open up, to be honest about it, and to actually starting to do something about it.
All right, Johan, I want to get personal here with myself, okay? Because in my business, I'm constantly marketing. In the coaching business, a call to action. I am in everybody's face. I'm telling everybody about what I do, coaching all the time. So I am constantly doing a loop of LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all day long. I am doing it over and over again. And yeah, and I'm justifying it because I'm not looking up, you know, liking people with, you know, fuzzy rabbits. I'm trying to, you know, market myself and gain business. So what do you say to somebody like me that's like, hey, especially in a pandemic where, you know, a lot of my stuff, I used to go out and network with people, and now I have to do it through Zoom, and I have to do it through the computer, and I've been kind of cut from being able to go out and network, at events and stuff, because I can't do it right now. So what would you say to me to say, hey, Paul, you got to limit your time? And I'm like, well, I would love to limit my time, but I want to promote my business.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, the question is not really how much are you using your screens now, especially with this pandemic. A lot of people just say, well, I use my screens a lot. Should I feel bad about it? To say no. No, there's bad use of screens and there's a good use of screens. Like in your case, you have to ask yourself, why do you use your screens? So the questions now are more why and how. So why are you using your screens? For work purposes, for business purposes, that's fine. If you're okay with that, that's fine. But then how are you using your screens? Like you have to set some boundaries. Is it okay that you use your screens? Are you disappointing anyone when you use your screens? Was it the rule not to use your screens? Maybe you are doing something with a friend or with a spouse or with a child, but you're using your screens. So you have to set boundaries. And then if you break those promises you make to yourself when it comes to setting those boundaries and you're crossing them, yeah, that's not good. If you use social media a bit too much because you're scrolling or you're just like, you're curious, you want to know what's happening in other people's lives and you're honest about it, you don't like it, okay, you want to change it. But if you're happy with the way you use social media, or not even social media, just the internet, like you said, for business purposes, you're interacting with people using screens a lot, that's completely fine. So if you're okay with that, that's good. If you see people complain about it, or even you are just like something is up, you're not happy about it, then you want to change. But so always ask yourself why and how you use your smartphone or laptop or screens in general.
So you mentioned those boundaries that you set, and I get the aspect of when you're having a personal interaction. I know one thing that I'm very aware of is not using my phone when I'm with my daughter, because she actually made a comment to me one time. She's like, Daddy, you're always on your phone. I had to show her what I was doing. I said, hey, look, I'm taking pictures of you. Like, I'm not ignoring you. I'm not doing something extraneous. I'm literally taking videos of you, or I'm taking pictures of you. But she was aware of it. And so I need to respect her in that regard and go give her my actual attention, not attention through a lens. So what are some other ways that you set boundaries, or that you suggest to your clients and audience that they set boundaries, whether it's within personal or in business life?
Yeah, so normally I just follow like some six-step formula. And then one of those steps is indeed those boundaries. But for people to really set those boundaries, I always start from step one, which is basically self-awareness. So you really want to understand, like what I said earlier, Paul, like you really want to understand, like, okay, are you happy with your screen time or not? And why not? How is it impacting your life? How's it impacting your relationships, your self-actualization process, your career, etc.? And then also you want to understand how much are you using your screens. You can use apps like Screen Time or Digital Wellbeing or other external apps like Forest and Screen Time. So they can tell you how much you use your screens. And you want to write like feelings and thoughts when you go for your phone and when you are using your phone. So you want to become very self-aware about your current position, but also that life that you want to live. How do you want to see your relationships? How do you want to see your self-actualization process, your career? And how does your phone fit in that picture? So you want to be very clear about that. So that's step one. Then step two is about insight. So that's like an extra layer of motivation. So it's all about explaining about the detrimental effects of excessive phone use, and also like why it's so hard to disconnect from the internet, from social media. Like when it comes to detrimental effects, I always use the Google Dementia or Google effect and digital dementia phenomenon. So basically that means that we outsource our brain. Like we don't know how to remember. We don't know how to calculate. Because we want to know something, we just go for our phone and we Google it or we ask someone. So we don't really remember anymore.
Sure.
And also when it comes to why we, for example, stay online so much is because we see these worlds. We think everyone sees this world, but it's a sophisticated, curated world designed by algorithms just for us, based on our clicks, based on our views, based on our online behavior. And social media, they know you better than your spouse knows you. So that's why they can predict what you will like. They create these models. So if you like A and B, if you like, for example, Burger King, McDonald's, then they know that you will probably like White Castle, for example. You like Maserati and BMW, you probably will like Ferrari. So you don't even know that you like it, but they already know, and they will feed you that information so you will stay longer online. So can you imagine if they know you better than your spouse knows you, then that information is highly valuable. That's why it's free. We think it's free, but it's not. We don't pay with money, but we pay with our data and time.
Mm-hmm.
The companies are the advertisers. So that's why they want to monetize our eyeballs, and they want for us to stay online as much as possible. So basically, step 2 is all about those facts, about what it does to our body, our posture, that there's digital eye strain that we can experience. So that's basically step 2 for that extra layer of motivation, so you understand what's at stake, why you really want to then learn how to disconnect. And that's...
Let me ask you this, Johan. You were talking about dementia. Is there any studies with screen time with long-term dementia? Is there anything that's medically in the books about that, or?
Not really long-term, no. Smartphones are introduced in 2007, so in terms of the long-term effects, no one really knows. Even regarding radiation, like no one really can say for sure what the effects are going to be.
Yeah, but computers, the internet's been around now since the mid-90s. I mean, most people, I think it took place more probably in the 2000s, but now we have, well, that's, over 20 years now. So there's got to be some sort of study about that, because, a lot of people were looking at their screens at that point in time. Is there anything on that? And Google was around then too.
True, but back then we could still disconnect. Like back then we would say BRB, for example, be right back. But now we never say BRB anymore because the device is in our pocket. So we bring it with us everywhere, even to the toilet. So that was years ago. So there's not one moment where we're not without our phone, and that we even put the phone underneath the pillow. So we're always available 24/7, always. People can demand our attention. Our phones can demand our attention 24/7. So it's a very different ballgame. It's a very different situation.
So that's an old school thing, BRB. I forgot about that saying.
Because it doesn't exist anymore. Like,
it doesn't exist. We're online all the time. Yeah.
I see what you're saying though about that, not practicing your memory, because what happened when we started having cell phones, then we didn't remember anybody's phone numbers, and so that's been, an exercise that, we don't work through with our brains. And now instead of trying to remember a fact or something, it's like, hey, just Google it. That's exactly. Like, that's a normal term now, right? It's like, oh, I'll just Google it, just not look it up or not try to remember just Google it. I don't want to think too hard,
exactly.
So I can see, and maybe we're not there yet, and maybe there's companies out there that don't want that study to happen to see the long-term negative effects that it has on brain health.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different factors going into that. Is like, is that information, do they want that out there, and is it around long enough? Because like Paul brought up, we've had home computers now for the last 30 years at least, but when we were out and about, we didn't have Google access, in our pockets. So that extra step of it being around all the time and us not using our brains anymore, that I can see that could lead to some long-term effects.
Exactly. Yeah. And it sounds advantageous, right? Like we outsource the tech, it facilitates our lives, but I see it the same as, for example, if I put a robot arm, like a cyborg, I become a cyborg. This is a robot arm. It's placed on top of my arm. I become very strong. But then when you take it off, my left arm will be twice as weak, because I don't train it anymore. So that's why the question is, how much do we want to outsource the tech? How much do we want for tech to facilitate our lives? But there's so many other effects. Like we become good at being distracted. We can't really focus anymore all the time. Like our brains, right? They adapt. They don't do what is good for us. It just adapts to whatever it is that we're doing constantly. And
this reminds me of something. I'm sure you're aware of this, but Elon Musk wants everybody to have a chip placed in their brain.
I was just watching that video today.
Where is your thought process on that?
Yeah, that's you see that the question is, I think that maybe goes too far. Because, who how do you know that you can trust that chip? Like, because at the end of the day, if it's about money, if it's about business, then is it really that beneficial? Probably, can you imagine put a chip and they will know your thoughts, like straight away, your deepest desires, your emotions. That's powerful information. That's powerful data. So I don't know what you can say to people who will be like, yeah, okay, that's fine. That seems secure. That seems legit. I wonder if that's going to be the case. But I think if he presents a lot of benefits, there might be probably a lot of people who will say, you know what, yeah, I like it. I don't mind
I
if
was
you know
watching the
about it.
video today, and he starts off talking about the medical benefits of it. You know, like saying that there are certain processes and machines that they have in place now, and they just want their product to be 100 times more effective. They talked about one that has to be operated by a medical professional that's kind of still sticking out of your head, so it's not functional. They want something that like no one would know. So they showed this, like, I think they said it's like almost a centimeter thick, that they would cut out a part of your skull and it would place in there and tap in, and no one would know it was there. But some of it would assist with brain health, memory, dementia, spinal cord problems. All that was their pitch up front, was medical. But obviously that's where it starts, and it can go from there, right? Like you said, downloading your thoughts, or now it's like ads are going to come up while you're sleeping.
Exactly.
It's like
being programmed directly. Yes. But I can imagine people will go for it.
It is a scary thought, to think that's where we're headed, as a society. But I literally was just watching that video this morning and going like, oh, this is very, very interesting.
I'll check.
Well, that would prevent Terminator 2, right? If everybody had that chip in their brain, that we'd all be robots, right? So we would be able to think ahead of the time, so they wouldn't be able to get us, right?
Exactly. But you're right. The future is fascinating. I wonder how it's going to be. Because at the end of the day, we can still disconnect. But with AR, augmented reality, virtual reality, it's like, it reminds me of the movie Ready Player One, where people are just immersed in that VR and they forget about the offline world. Like, can you imagine how it's going to be when we create this online persona on social media, but once there's VR, we can actually embody that person? Like, that's scary. Then I
remember them talking about that years ago when they had these kind of like online, I don't know if it was called My Life or something like that. There was a type of game where you're just like, you made a house, you just kind of wandered around, interacted with other people. You could go to like a dance club and make your character dance. And they talked about that then, like, hey, this is not good, that people are living their lives in this game. And the fact that it was like, it wasn't even like a fantasy game or a sports game. It's literally was just like life. You built a house, you had a car, you went to different places, you could visit people, and so they're like, this is not good. This is going to lead to some very bad stuff in the future if we're just living in this virtual world. So
and this was a long time ago. This was Second Life. That's
is that what it was? Second Life.
Second Life. Yeah, it was 15 years ago or something.
I remember it a long time. I remember playing it a couple of times and going, "This is weird. Like, this is crazy."
True. The graphics were not even,
No, the graphics weren't even good, but people were still stuck into it. It's like back in the day when you could see the pixels, like in the games that you were playing.
Well, I guess if you're socially awkward, right? If you're socially awkward and it's hard for you to communicate with people face to face and stuff, you can hide behind the computer screen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But what happens when you have that interaction in person? Are you going to be able to do the same, or is it going to make it worse?
Exactly.
We will never have to. It'll all be AI, right?
I guess if
exactly. And then people think, we don't need to even meet in the offline world. Not necessary.
Right. Yeah. Well, Johan, like, what are the other steps? I'm real curious on your process. I know you got the step 2. What are some of those other steps that you work your clients through?
So step 3 is digital citizenship. So there are people who complain about their smartphone, but if you tell them to trade it for a dumb phone, feature phone, or flip phone, they want to trade their smartphone. They don't want to lose it. So they want to keep their smartphone. So we might as well just embrace it. Learn how our smartphone works. So that's why I have an iPhone course where I teach people how to transform an iPhone from an enemy into a friend, into an ally. So that step is all about learning about tech. Do you know about privacy settings? Do you know about security settings? Do you know about dark mode, the notifications, the do not disturb option, disabling mobile data for particular apps, silencing specific numbers? Do you know about all these features? Or about social media? If you use social media, do you know about those privacy settings and security settings? Do you know about the disabling active status of Facebook? Do you know that YouTube allows you to set reminders? Do you know about all these options? Do you know how screen time works? So basically you want to be like a bit tech savvy, a little bit. I don't use often because people kind of feel scared, like, oh, tech savvy. I don't want to be tech savvy. Why? But just like be mindful, know how these devices work if you use them so much. You know how those social media platforms work if you use them so much. And also, digital citizenship is all about understanding that you leave digital footprint behind, that the internet remembers. You want to practice specific rules of etiquette, internet etiquette. Understand that there's digital reputation that you leave. You want to behave properly. Whatever you post, people can use it against you.
You don't want those tweets from 4 years ago to like pop up and
especially if you're running for office, right?
Exactly. Yeah. exactly. And these stories happen, right? Like I think Kevin Hart posted something 10 years ago, and it was used against him.
It's on a regular basis. Like you could just do a long list of people that it's happened to, or stuff that you said one day, and then 6 months later you're saying the complete opposite. So it's never gone.
Exactly. And that's what people should be aware of. So it's really about how to portray online, and also know about the dangers. Recognize deepfakes now, or fake news. Or do you know about cyberbullying, about flaming, about online grooming, catfishing, all these dangers that are happening? There are advantages, but you also want to be aware of the disadvantages. For example, Google image search. Be careful what you post, what kind of photos you're posting, because people can take a photo, then move it to Google image search, and then Google is going to find that place. Like I've tried it multiple times. I just post a photo of a city and it will know where it was. So you want to be careful what's on your shirt. Is the name of your school on your shirt when you post that photo? You just want to be very mindful. And that's why you want to about the privacy settings, for example, that you can set your profile to private just for a specific group of people. So the digital citizenship is all about how to behave online, the dangers, and how those devices and platforms work.
You said one term I wasn't familiar with. I knew you said catfishing and cyberbullying, but you said flaming. What is that?
Flaming is basically very similar to trolling. So flaming is basically attacking someone. Okay. Like trolling is not even personal. Trolling is just like disrupting an environment. Like you're in a forum or in a chat box, you just enter and you just want to make fun of people. You just want for people to be annoyed. But flaming is really attacking someone. Like you post a lot of mean comments to someone. So yeah, that's flaming. So all these dangers happen, and you want to become aware of that, especially as a parent as well.
Yeah, I was thinking, that's great for the parents to know about, so they can, help educate their kids on some of those things, or know that it's happening. I my daughter's still young enough to where I'm telling her, hey, I'm going to take this and look at it for a minute. She was in some kind of online game that people are chatting back and forth, and there was one or two people in the chat that were being really mean to someone else. And I was asking my daughter about this. I'm like, who are these people? Oh, those are my friends. And I'm like, friends what? From the game, from real life? No, in the game. And I'm like, but look how they're talking to this other person. I'm like, do you think that this is okay? I'm like, look, and she's like, no. She's like, but they're my friends. And I'm like, no, they're not. They are not. They are like people that are pointing. I don't know if they're another 9-year-old. Are they a 45-year-old man that's on this little kid game? Like, that's where my mind goes. And I'm like, no. I'm like, this is not acceptable. I mean, she got all emotional about like, but they're my friends. But I think it's important for the parents to be aware of that and see what's going on. Luckily, my daughter wasn't the victim of that cyberbullying, but she was there and watching it happen. And how much does that, affect what they see and how they behave as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's another one is cyber flashing. That's when AirDrop is enabled. AirDrop is a feature on iPhone. If it's set to everybody, then any stranger can just send inappropriate content and you will see that immediately on your screen.
Oh, wow.
That's something. Yeah, so that's something you want to disable as well. So, and that's why screen time is very good. Those parental controls, they're very good. And I think parents should be more aware of those parental controls of those platforms and devices. And not just like devices in terms of smartphones, but also PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, the Wi-Fi, the Switch, Nintendo Switch, the Xbox, but also mobile networks, browsers. They all have parental controls. And not many parents know about it.
Justin, you brought up something that reminded me. Tony Robbins said one time about social media. You say a lot of stuff through social media that you would never say to somebody's face, but you're okay doing it through a keyboard. But hide behind a keyboard, so to speak. There's consequences when you see somebody face to face and you say these nasty things to, where there's not so much those consequences when you do it through a keyboard, through a screen.
Exactly. It's easy to unleash our pain, to give it to others. If we're protected, we think we're anonymous, and there's a screen that's protecting us. It's this sense of security that we feel. We can become someone else. Our deepest dark desires can be basically lived online. And that's why there's a lot of mean people who don't know how to deal with their pain and fear and suffering. So and also, unfortunately, when you have some weird fantasies, normally you have these fantasies, but you keep them to yourself. But now when you go online, there's someone who shares that fantasy, and then you talk more about it, and you find more people who believe in that fantasy, and then that fantasy becomes like kind of a normality. So you talk more about it and more about it, and then you can really change and actually act in a very crazy way. It was this case, right? I think in the US, of two girls who really believed in the story of the Slender Man, that figure of this horror story, and they actually really wanted to kill a girl. They attacked this girl because they thought they had to do it because to worship the Slender Man. But it's because they were so immersed in that whole community that they actually started to believe that story of, I think it's Slender Man. So that's why it's so dangerous as well. Like, you can really, if you think you have some strange ideas, there is someone online who shares those exact same ideas that you have.
Well, I'm always kind of the positive kind of person. So when you said that, yes, I can see the detriment of what you're talking about, but I also can see some positive things by that, right? Because you might think I'm alone in these thought processes, and there's other people that feel the same way I do, and maybe they can have a shared community to help each other out. So I can see the positive there too on that.
100%. Oh yes. Yeah, it's not all bad. It's not all negative. Exactly. On internet, there's a lot of advantages for sure. Yeah, but that's good. You're aware of both.
The whole idea of like being uncomfortable, or men talking about emotions, like whatever that is, right? It's and at first it's scary to think about, right? That you start normalizing some of these bad ideas. But I'm glad you brought that up, Paul. It's like you can normalize these great ideas too, and be like, hey, like, I never had anyone to talk about with this, now, you find a group somewhere that's discussing it, and you can like expand your circle of influence. You're like, okay, so like Paul said, I'm not the only one experiencing this. I know we've had a couple of guests on the show talk about suicide and people that, thought that they were the only one that felt that way until they had that conversation, and it's like, oh crap, I'm not the only one. I'm not broken. It's just, something that I'm going through right now. And so it's also a good thing to be able to normalize some of those ideas and normalize those type of conversations and be like, hey, this is okay. So I'm glad you brought that up, Paul, that there is a positive side to it, because I think we got stuck going down that negative rabbit hole, going like, oh my gosh, this is so bad. But there are a lot of good things to come out of it. And I think, using some of the tips you talked about, Johan, and restricting it, and something I like to talk about is restricting the negative influence that you get. So, there's so many negative things that we're seeing out there, but if you get those parental controls in line, if you filter out all the bad stuff that you don't want to see, that's a huge benefit to you as well. So I think what you're putting out there and teaching people how to do that can help them achieve that, in reducing the amount of negative crap that we see on a regular basis that can help get you in a more positive mindset.
Yeah, exactly. And that's step 4. That's boundaries. Yeah, that's basically
good transition there, Justin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you knew. Yeah, so it's because then you really take action. Because sometimes people ask me, like, give me just one quick strategy, just one. I don't want to know about any detrimental effects, whatever. Just give me one strategy. It's or from step 5 or 4. So step 4 is indeed digital boundaries, screen habits. So one of the first that I always introduce is the no phone zone rule. So when you, for example, dine, that area becomes a no phone zone. When you watch a movie, that area becomes a no phone zone. When you go to bed, that area becomes a no phone zone. But then also you want to have a phone lounge, as I call it. A phone lounge where you're going to leave your phone. So when an area becomes a no phone zone, you don't discuss where you're going to leave your phone, because there are going to be discussions, there are going to be debates, like, okay, but can I use maybe my phone over there behind me, or 1 meter away from me? No. You want to know, okay, this area becomes a no phone zone, we leave our phones in that designated space. And then maybe you can charge your phone at the same time. And then you also want to then introduce those limits. So do not disturb. When are you going to enable do not disturb? Which notifications are you going to disable? Which settings are you going to deactivate or activate the social media? People sometimes become very frustrated and say, I want to go on a digital detox. And I say, well, look, you're emotional now. If you do it now, if I tell you, okay, good luck, do it 1 week, you're not going to do it, because tomorrow you will just be fine and you're just going to use social media. So start small, right? You know, you don't want to break promise to yourself. So I always say start small. So just introduce no tech hour. Every evening, no tech hour, set a time, like 9 o'clock, 9 to 10, no tech hour, or just before you go to bed, just do that. Just phone somewhere, and then even if you cannot focus on anything else, just make sure you don't touch it. Can you do that? Okay, then maybe a no tech evening. Can you do that once a week? Oh, you can do that. Okay, then every day, or a no tech Tuesday. So you want to start small. You want to start small steps. And also, I like to introduce counter triggers. So, for example, change your wallpaper. So instead of like an image of an island, just put like fuck me, or put me away, or what you're doing, go offline, something like that, something that triggers you. Because we're constantly triggered. It's an internal trigger, like a feeling, or it's an external trigger that we see our friends or a character in a movie using their devices, and then you go for your device. So you're triggered. So we're constantly triggered. Then it's good to have a counter trigger. Like I even told someone last week, get an ugly phone case, like an eccentric phone case, that every time when you see that phone case, like there's this nanosecond that you're like, why do I have this phone case? But then you just remember, like, okay, yeah, I have to be mindful, because you want to make people more mindful about their use. Like, it's fine if you want to check Facebook, but be conscious about it, be aware of it. So even if you go through the app cycle, be aware of that as well, that you go through the app cycle. You want to always ask yourself, what's the intention now that I'm going to unlock my phone? Another feature is like reduce the auto lock to just 1 minute or 30 seconds instead of like 5 minutes. Or plan your distraction, plan your social media time. You know what? Plan 2 hours of social media and just do that. 7 to 9 p.m., go on social media, but don't do anything else. Just go and do whatever you want to do. And you notice that after 1 hour, they're like, yeah, I'm kind of done. Like, yes,
Not Paul.
Kind of.
Not
No,
Paul. Paul
Not me. I keep going. I change it.
But that's for business purposes, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
It's that's why, and then it has to be done if you're okay with that, right? But to use your time like mindlessly, you're using it mindfully, but mindlessly, you want to set those boundaries. So
yeah, there's a huge difference,
use it,
right?
Exactly. And then you notice that people are like, yeah, you know what? I don't really feel good to spend 2 hours on social media. It's because like every time it's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes,
Sure.
10 minutes. I can't accumulate that, and it's a lot. But when you really say, okay, do it, use it, and then set the alarm, and then you plan your distraction.
And what's step 6?
Yeah. So,
how many steps are there?
That was 6,
2 more
right?
left.
6.
Yeah, step 7.
So
So this was basically step 4, like all these boundaries and rules you're going to set for yourself and your family. So step 5 is embrace life. So the focus should not be just on pushing the phone away. You're still looking at your phone. When you push it away, you need something that pulls you away from your phone, that makes you turn around so you can place your energy and focus on that thing. So that's another strategy that I quickly say when people want something fast. Or I say, for example, delete game apps, because there's no justification for game apps. So if you don't delete game apps, you cannot justify that. It's just entertainment. But another is just find a different activity to focus on. So it could be with yourself, with your spouse, with your friends. But nowadays, because of the pandemic, I always say board games. Get yourself a board game. There's not just Clue and Stratego and chess out there and Scrabble. There are a lot of games.
Everything you listed
Shoots and
was
ladders.
my favorites, Johan. You listed like 4 of my favorites right off the
Really?
top there.
Shoots and ladders. Sorry, you forgot about sorry.
So that's I don't know. I don't know that one.
It's a great game. I used to play it in kindergarten. Loved the game.
Really?
I used to be the yellow sticks. I don't know why. I always thought the yellow color was the best. I don't know.
It was a simple game, like probably simple or.
Yeah, you had cards and it's a good game. Yeah, you can check it out.
Okay, I will. But please, like, there's a website called Board Game Geek. It shows like top 100, top 200 best family games. So many beautiful games out there. I'm in this hobby now for 2 years, and I'm just like flabbergasted. I'm just shocked. So many good games, but when you play a board game, like you immerse in the stories, some person is the antagonist, someone is a protagonist, and you're talking about the whole experience. It's a story. And you can even work together, collaborate together, because those games also exist that you're playing against an AI. And then you have to strategize, you have to make decisions. You get to know each other like on a different level. And even if someone is shy, that person feels comfortable to talk, to speak, to express himself. And it's just good for in terms of cognition, in terms of communication. So that's why I say play board games, because you don't even know how to spell Facebook. You don't even think about Facebook or your smartphone when you are in this world of board games. So that's an activity. So that's embrace life. Do something else. Normally I would say, go out and about, be with those, go hiking, but now it's more indoors. But basically find a different interest. Yeah.
I like that. And that was step 5, the enjoy the life. Yeah. I like that, finding different ways to do that. And what's step 6? I know I skipped ahead on you, but what's step 6?
No problem. No, I can imagine you did, because that's connected to what you guys are doing. Because that is
do a podcast. Step 6 is do a podcast.
That's it. You're done. It's very connected to that. Could be. It's actually embrace thyself. So that's really about basically improving the story you tell yourself about yourself when you're by yourself. Like, like a lot of times we outsource our happiness, right? We feel good about ourselves when other people feel good about us. Like we post something, like my shirt looks good. When people say, yeah, your shirt looks good, Justin. They're like, yeah, my shirt does look good. But when we say, nah, to be honest, that's not really that good, then people are like, yeah, it's not really that good. So people outsource their happiness. Only when they feel good about you, they say something good about you, then you will feel good about yourself. So if you're going to believe the bad, or you're going to believe the good, then you're going to also believe the bad. So that's why you need to improve the story you tell yourself about yourself. You need to improve that self-confidence, that self-esteem, because you don't want to outsource someone to be your fan. You have to learn how to be your biggest fan. We're always our biggest critic, right? The way we talk to ourselves, we never would talk this way to a friend. But the way we talk to ourselves is just, we lose ourselves. We sacrifice ourselves for the sake of impressing other people. And that's why we really need to learn how to do that introspection, to get to know ourselves better. It's also like mindfulness, learn how to be with ourselves, understanding our thoughts. Like, you want to create more space between the trigger and the action. That's how you also control your phone use, that the more you're conscious of the trigger, the more you can use that freedom of choice. So you can choose to do something else, or at least to go for your phone consciously. So that's really progressing, following your dreams. What is it that you want in life? Because the more you become conscious of your mortality, the more you look at life from a macro level, the more, like you said, Justin, the more you understand, like, okay, I'm with my child, those moments matter, the easier it becomes to detach yourself from smartphones and social media. And then that's why it's so important to just develop yourself. And it's different from activities, because activities is just like, painting. But like this step is really something that makes you become your desired self. What you wanted in that step 1, self-awareness, that vision, where that phone fits perfectly in that vision, that's what you want to realize. And that's what that whole step 6 is all about. Just like,
I like what you said about being your biggest fan. I think Paul gives me crap sometime for being my own biggest fan, but
yeah?
I've never given you crap about that. Don't make me be the bad guy here.
But we have to, right? You have to learn how to give yourself credit when something happens, but walk that fine line between confidence and arrogance, right? That's the conversation I'm talking about, Paul, that we've had before. Sometimes it's a fine line that you can walk between those two. But Johan, 100%. That's a lot of great information for everyone to really chew on and think about, and to really be mindful with your social media, with your internet use. And I think that's the biggest thing. Not saying, hey, I need to do a complete detox and get away from it, But if you're using it in a manner like Paul is, like business related, then it's like, hey, that's okay. I'm being mindful of it. I'm doing it with a purpose in mind. Maybe even in that setting some type of boundaries, like you suggested, and going like, hey, look, at 8 o'clock at night, I'm done. I need to do that so I can go to sleep, so I can get some good rest. I'm not going to look at emails after a certain hour. So I think you had a lot of great tips in there for us, Johan.
I hope so. There's so many tips, so many strategies, but yeah, I hope so.
Well, we like to wrap up the show asking our guests, with our name of our podcast in mind, Actions and Limits, what would you say is one action that we can take that would make a huge difference in our lives? And also with these ideas of these limiting beliefs that we impose on ourselves, what would be the number one limiting belief that we need to remove in order to improve our lives as well?
I like to believe of not able to live the life that we want, because if we don't get rid of that, then we're just going to show people that we're living that life instead of actually trying to live that life, so that we don't really focus on specific activities that we take on outside for the sake of posting, but for the sake of actually enjoying that experience. So to have that more confidence, to have that bigger vision. And yeah, that, because when you get rid of that limit, then you want to prioritize your time, because when you then have something to prioritize, you have something you can place your focus on. And when you're able to do that, when you have something to place your focus on, which is not your phone, then that is even more reason to not use your phone. So the limiting belief of, I cannot live that life that those people online are living, while 9 out of 10 times it's not even their real life. It's just like one moment, or it's all with effects or filters applied. So you think that's how they look, or that's how they are happy 24/7. No, that's not true. So the limiting belief of they live like they're much better than I am. They are. I'm not enough. They're more talented. They're more capable. No, you have the minimal requirements. You have the minimal requirements to live that life that you want to live, instead of just posting about it.
Awesome. Well, great insights there, Johan, and a lot of great information for our guests to think about and using their phones and using the internet. So I know Paul and I think, took a lot away from this ourselves. So hopefully our audience did as well. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Johan.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell us where we can reach you?
Yes, my website is socialmediabreakup.com. And so I have an iPhone course where I teach people how to transform their device from a friend to an ally into a friend. So if they send me an email to johan@socialmediabreakup.com and they tell me that they have heard me on your podcast, I will send them a free link so they can access the course for free.
Perfect. Oh, that's great, Johan. And we'll make sure to put down all your links down in the show notes so everyone can reach out to you. So again, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And hopefully our audience is reaching out to you.
Thanks a lot. No, thank you, Paul and Justin. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much. It was fun.
Well, Johan was such a good guest. Makes me want to put my phone away forever, though. All the all the things we were talking about. I know his biggest thing was, really being mindful with how you're using social media. And I know you and I were talking about it before we even got on the air, between you and I, with how much you're getting on there. Do you see anything you're going to change in how you operate it, or put some boundaries on yourself? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I need to keep myself accountable. I mean, not all the time I'm getting on there for business. I mean, majority of the time it is, but there's some time it's not, that I don't need to get on there. So yeah, I think I need to be a little bit more mindful for that, for sure.
Yeah, I liked, especially with my daughter, or when I'm with someone, that's the biggest time that I'm like, hey, I just want to put my phone away, face down somewhere else, because nothing is more important than that moment. And it's something I like to ask myself on a regular basis, what is my purpose in this moment? Is it
be present, right?
Yeah. Is it to be on my phone, or is it to have this conversation with, a loved one, or spend time with them? Screw that phone, screw that email, that stuff can wait. Text messages can wait. if someone needs to leave me a voicemail or something, that's fine. So, and enjoy the moments rather than taking pictures. I'm not huge on being somewhere and videoing and taking pictures, because I'm like, I would rather just enjoy it than, watch it, in a week or in a year. Like I just want to enjoy the moment. So, just being there rather than just looking at it through the lens. So that's one thing that I like to focus on. But he had a lot of good information. Hopefully our audience picked up on something that they can do to adjust their social media and usage. So another great guest, Paul. So let's wrap it up with another segment of Ask Paul Anything. Paul, you said you had a question.
I do.
You found in the emails.
Yeah, this is from Sam from Oregon, and he says, Paul, is there an adventure that you would like to take on?
That's a good question.
And I'm going to my uncomfortable side, right? We always talk about being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and I'm going to go with something that you've done, Justin. You've actually done this.
Okay.
That's very uncomfortable to me, but I want to face my fears on this, and that would be skydiving.
Okay. Yeah. Are you have?
I'm afraid of heights. I mean, yeah. And I'll tell you this. I'm more scared to bungee jump than I am to skydive, because when you're bungee jumping, you're really, really, really high up, right? But you still can kind of see the bottom and see how far you have to fall. Whereas when you're I feel like, and now, I'm going to go off of you. I mean, I feel like when you're skydiving, you can kind of just look in the horizon and not have to look like down when you take that jump, right?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to go bungee jumping just from seeing all the accidents that happen when people bungee jump, the cord snapping and getting wrapped around their neck. I would probably rather go skydive again. I will say that was probably the most intense thing I've experienced in my life, like jumping out of an airplane with a guy strapped to your back. You're just kind of floating there for a minute. The initial drop is what gets you, Paul. So once you reach terminal velocity, then you just feel like you're just chilling. But that initial drop, so yeah, dude, I will cheer you on from the ground.
Been there, done that, huh?
Yeah, I don't know if I would want to go again. But if I had to choose between bungee jumping and skydiving again, I'd probably skydive again. So I think it's a good choice. But like you said, be uncomfortable being get comfortable being uncomfortable. Trying new things, conquering your fears. I like that aspect a lot. Like saying, hey, look, I'm scared of heights, but hell, screw it. I'm gonna conquer it. I'm not gonna let it, rule what I do. But great question, Sam from Oregon. Everyone, make sure to continue sending your questions into the show at actionsandlimits@gmail.com, and you can get your question answered on the air. Another great guest, Paul. I was really glad that Johan came on the show and shared his insight into social media with us. So, yeah, another great week, man.
For Justin Atherton, this is Paul Fortune. We'll see you next week.
All right. See you next Monday. Thank you for listening to the show. Don't miss an episode. Click and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform, and find us on Instagram and Facebook under Actions and Limits to stay updated on all our upcoming content. Continue to email the show at actionsandlimits@gmail.com for our segment Ask Paul Anything. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.